Chapter 7 Questions. After an interminable time floating in a semi-conscious haze, the piercing smell of some chemical disinfectant annoys you into a state of full wakefulness. The slight wooziness you feel and the absence of pain from your wounded shoulder tells you you're probably still drugged up on painkillers, if nothing else. You're on a hospital bed somewhere in St. Stephen's Memorial Hospital. St. Stephen, you know, because it's the only place locally that can handle non-human trauma in any significant capacity. You know you're in the ER because you smell the blood from other injured Moreaus past the thin curtain you've pulled around your bed. You wonder how long you've been drugged insensible. You have no real memory after the human medic stripped you and shot you with something. But, however badly you've been hurt, they seem to have patched you up. You've recovered to the point everyone feels safe ignoring you. So you want to check out. Don't want to wait. Let's pull the curtain aside to see any other victims of the explosion. You groan as you get to a seated position. You ache all over from what you've gone through the last couple of days. A large patch of fur is missing from the top of your right shoulder, reaching around behind you. Once you notice that, it begins to itch. You reach up to scratch, only stopping when an IV tube tugs sharply where it's been injected into a vein in your left arm. You curse under your breath and lower your arm. Before you have a chance to reach over and draw the curtain aside yourself, someone on the other side of the curtain pulls it open. You're only slightly surprised to see Detective Toomey on the other side of the curtain, rather than some orderly. "Fohamner," he snaps. "You need to answer some questions." You better take no for an answer. Okay, what the hell? Is this a hospital? I want to be more subtly rude, but still cooperative than this, but this is still the best option. I'll help with the investigation, but I call him out for being a rude SOB. I'll answer your questions, but you have some nerve barging in here like that. You wave at this curtain, causing the IV tube to sway a bit. This is a hospital, in case you haven't noticed. Toomey blinks a little, as if your answer threw him off his stride briefly. He doesn't look directly at you, and you realize that he's staring at the IV still connected to your arm. After a pause, Detective Toomey pulls out a small tablet and his stylus. "Thank you, Foe," he says. "Let's start with the rabbit with the explosive. Tell me about him." "Her," you correct him. "What?" "That rabbit, her name was Francesca." You continue giving Toomey everything you actually know about Francesca. To you, it still seems inadequate. However, Toomey seems to be happy knowing her connection to the Saints and your apartment fire. It takes about half an hour with Toomey gratuitously asking you to repeat stuff. After he questions you, he puts his tablet away and says, "Thanks for being so cooperative." "Look, you've been pretty helpful." He turns around and pulls the curtain shut behind him. In a near whisper, he asks, "How would you feel about helping me in a more formal capacity?" It takes a moment before you realize Toomey's asking you to be some sort of informant. "Only if there's something in it for me." Achievement, confidential informant. Get on the payroll working for Detective Toomey. "Does formal mean paid, you ask? You know I just lost my job." "Sure," he answers you as he pulls a bill out of his pocket. "You help me out, I'll help you. Everybody wins." He places a $100 bill on the bed next to you. "And what do I do for that?" You nod in the direction of the cash. You become my confidential informant. You keep your eyes and ears open and watch what's going on, especially if you can identify people and what they're doing or planning. When you have something, contact me. Let me know. Okay. One thing, though. If you discover anything, let me know soon. We're not talking gang wars anymore, Foe. This is full-blown terrorism. The feds will be all over this sooner rather than later, and Homeland Security doesn't have a great reputation for respecting CIs. He nods as you pick up the money and ball it in your right fist. Then he opens the curtain and walks away, leaving it open behind him. As you watch Toomey leave through the half-open curtain, what's bouncing through your head is the thought of Francesca's actions were terrorism. For some reason, even though she'd almost blown you up using a suicide vest, that word, and the implications, hadn't crossed your mind until Toomey mentioned it. Did it matter that she was completely nuts? Who else has a bomb like that? Of course it was terrorism, and of course it was only a matter of time before federal agents started crawling out of the woodwork. They probably weren't here now only because no humans were in the blast radius. Let's get out of here. I've been here for too long. You look down at the IV in your arm and grit your teeth. First things first, you pull tape from the small patch of shaved skin inside your elbow, then you grip the plastic nub the IV tube feeds into. You stare at it for a moment, then yank it out of your arm. A needle longer than you expect slides out of your arm with a sting and a welling of blood. You stand up, holding pressure on the fresh wound for a minute or so. As you stand there with a slow trickle of blood oozing from under your fingers, you catch sight of a familiar cheetah out of the corner of your eye. You turn to see David Turre walking past a nurse's station and between ranks of curtain-shrouded hospital beds. He seems to notice you almost at the same time you notice him. He waves and starts walking over in your direction. Good, I can find out what happened with the Unity Center. As David approaches, you wave back with your left hand as you keep pressure on the bleeding hole in the crook of your arm. Dave walks up beside your bed and asks, "How are you doing, foe?" "Fine for someone who blew up," you shrug. "What brings you here?" "You," he says. "Me?" I want to see how everyone's doing after the explosion." "Yeah, well, I'm fine." You pause a moment and look at the strain in his face. "How about you? Are you okay?" "Yes, I wasn't near the explosion." He trails off, shaking his head. No, as if subconsciously contradicting himself. Why would anyone do this? I'm pretty sure Francesca wasn't in her right mind. "We're here to help people. How could anyone—" He breaks off the thought and looks at your arm. "You are bleeding." You glance down at the crook of your arm and grimace at the smears of blood there. There are probably better ways to remove an IV. It's nothing. He half turns toward the nurse station. "I should get someone for—" "Don't worry about it," you interrupt him. "Of course I worry," he snaps. For a moment, you're too taken aback to respond. "It's unbelievable you got off as lightly as you did after that attempt to play hero." "I was trying to save people." He sighs and says, "I know, you did. But you almost killed yourself in the process." I need to know what's going on. I ask him what happened. Ask him why he's really here. No, this is the first one. We've had to move the shelter, of course." He shakes his head. "We have some tents from the Red Cross. We're setting up in the parking lot, and we're doubling up on occupancy in the undamaged part of the building. Worst is we've lost water, and we won't get it back for a few days at least. What about the people? Thanks to you, there are only a few serious injuries. Other than that, it's mostly falls from folks running outside." He glanced back over his shoulder. "You suppose that some of the other folks here from the Unity Center." He turns back to look at you. "But there's another reason I stopped by to see you." "Yes?" "You know about the event I am organizing. You remember the flyer you saw the morning your apartment burned? Yeah, some sort of peace rally on Friday." "Rally for peace," David corrects you. "It's been something I've been trying to organize for 2 years now. Working with the city, getting permits, not easy." "I guess not. Especially for a Moreau, you think." "Well, after this violence, it's more important than ever to have humans and non-humans on the same side for once. Bring people together to see the real enemies are distrust and hate." "It's a nice thought. So it would mean a lot to me if you'd attend." "Me?" "I'm worried about more violence. There'll be police, but I'm not naive. I'd like to have some informal security that other non-humans will trust." "And you're asking me? You handled yourself well in a crisis." "Sure, I'll do it." You nod. "Sure, why not?" "Great." He reaches and clasps your left hand in both of his. "Thank you." "So, is there anything else?" you ask. "No, that's it." He pats you on an uninjured shoulder. "Hope you're feeling better soon." He turns and leaves. As you watch him go, you notice something out of the corner of your eye. You look to your left and see a brightly colored plastic bag hanging on a coat hook up on the wall, by the head of your hospital bed, just on the other side of the curtain. Someone's written Natasha Fohamner across it in large block letters. They obviously left it for you. You glance down at your IV wound and decide it isn't serious. You take the pressure off of it and realize you're still holding Toomey's 100 in your right hand. It's now covered with your blood. No, you think, that's not ominous at all. You reach up and take the bag off the coat hook. Opening it up, you dump the contents on your bed. The main part of it is complete change of clothes, new ones that might actually fit you. It sparks a memory of how the medics stripped off the dirty mess you had been wearing. You put the clothes on, and they do fit you. You know where they came from as soon as you pull on the shirt that came with the ensemble. You're now wearing a t-shirt with the globe logo of the East Side Unity Center, a twin of the one that you keep seeing David the Cheetah wearing. If there's any question left about who gave you those clothes, there's also a card with David Turre's name and number on it. He must have stopped by before you'd woken up. Next to David's card is the one you got from Toomey when he first questioned you. Also, to your relief, you see your wallet. You stashed Toomey's blood-stained $100 in it before pocketing it in your new jeans. Lastly, you see the card from Chris Westbrook. It's so crumpled and dirty and bloody that you took it for a piece of trash at first. You pick it up, smooth it between your fingers, and put it away with the ones from David and Toomey. Once you look up from what you were doing, as if summoned by her card, you find yourself face to face with Chris Westbrook. "Hello, foe," she says. "Hello, nice to see you." "Well, I'm happy to see you're all right." She glances at the blood on the sheet and still matting the fur on your left arm. "You are all right, aren't you?" "It's nothing." "Are you sure? Should I call the nurse for you?" "No, I'm fine." You change the subject by asking what brings you here, even though it's perfectly clear why a reporter would show up right now. I wanted to ask you about the explosion at the Unity Center. Of course you do, you think. Are you willing to talk about it, she asks. Sure. Ask me whatever. She takes out a tablet from a bag hanging from her shoulder. So I can take notes, Chris explains. Okay. Just tell me what happened in your own words. You tell her everything, from the point you noticed Francesca to the point the explosive vest went off. Chris asks you questions about Francesca, confirming she's a member of the Saints, where you saw her before, and her state of mind. Were her pupils dilated? I don't know. Why? I think your rabbit was probably an addict. Given your description of her statement before she died, I'd suspect that she was under the influence at the time. You run what she said back through your mind. She was concerned about showing her faith. It's not uncommon for people to drug themselves into religious delusions. What was she doing with a suicide vest then? What do you mean? That vest? Those usually aren't made by lone nuts, are they? You think she got it from someone? Or making it for someone? It wasn't a drug lab that blew up my apartment. What if it was a bomb lab? And something went wrong. That would explain where she got it, but why would anyone... You're already thinking of the weird rats and how Francesca sounded just like them. What if it isn't just her religious delusion? You think she's in some sort of cult. You tell Chris about the rats. She hesitates a moment before you're done and she asks, These rats, were they gang members as well? No idea. Oh, sorry, I didn't do her voice. That's alarming. Coming from the woman who didn't nearly blow up. Seriously, foe, if it exists, this kind of cult feeds right into irrational fears of non-human terrorism. You reach up and rub your uninjured shoulder. At the moment, the fear isn't so irrational. I know, she says. I think most of my so-called colleagues think I'm the crazy irrational one for even trying to dig up any non-human stories. Sometimes, like when those two gangbangers were threatening me, I wonder if they're right. She shakes her head. I guess I'm just stubborn. I don't like being told I can't do something, even if it's crazy and irrational. Well, someone has to do it, right? You're not going to lecture me about my savior complex? For some reason, that makes you think of David in the Unity Center. You shake your head. If you're giving the news to humans, they're more likely to hear it from a human. Thanks for understanding. She looks at you with a closed-mouthed smile. Do you feel up to helping me? Helping you do what? You probably noticed last night I can't really keep a low profile in this neighborhood. You can say that again. So I need a reliable source. Someone who can investigate and go ask questions where I can't. She's asking you to work for her. Yeah, why not? I'm already working for the cops. Achievement. Sure, whatever you need, you tell her. Good. You still have my card? Yes. I should have asked for money, though. That was a foolish thing I just did. Dig around. If you find something, let me know. Sure. Thank you. Chris says as she puts the tablet back in her bag, I really think this will make the difference in getting this story out before more people are hurt. Chris pauses and you catch a subtle, earthy change in her scent. Is something wrong, you ask? No, is something wrong, you ask? No, nothing. She sucks in a breath. Chris sucks in a breath. She reaches out to touch the side of your right forearm. Her fingers stroke your fur once, briefly, before withdrawing. It's an odd sensation. You're not completely certain about what's going on here, but you think she might be flirting with you. Just let it go. Yeah, I'll give you a call if I find out anything. Sure. Chris suddenly sounded uncharacteristically uncertain. See you around. I'm looking forward to hearing from you. She reaches out and quickly shakes your hand before she leaves. You watch her go, wondering what's going through her mind. You stand there for a moment, lost in thought, and you're interrupted by the sound of someone clearing their throat. You glance in that direction and see an annoyed human orderly standing where Chris had been. He holds a tablet in his hand. Ms. Fohamner, you haven't been cleared by the doctor to leave. You glance down at yourself and then back up at the orderly. Looks like I'm leaving anyway. Then you need to sign a release declining further treatment. Okay, I'll sign it. You sigh and take his tablet so you can sign his stupid forms. You scroll across the tablet surface and return it. He taps on it a few times and says, and here. You comply. And here, an initial here, and put your billing address here, your social. The whole process wastes close to 15 minutes, and you wonder why it seems that humans have a habit of punishing anyone who follows their rules. When the orderly's done with you, all you can think of is getting out of the building. Chapter 8. Thrown to the Wolves. Once you exit the hospital, you start walking back toward your neighborhood. You don't have a specific destination in mind yet, you're just glad to get out of there. You're clean, your clothes don't stink, and your injuries seem mostly fixed up, so you can only feel a few twinges here and there. You suck in deep breaths of air free of hospital scent. As it darkens toward evening, you realize that you've lost most of the day. Your thoughts drift up toward where you're going to spend the night. You could do a reprise of last night and see if the Unity Center has any unscorched beds, but you're still thinking things over. And before you come to any kind of decision, something catches your attention. A familiar scent hits you, beyond the static ozone of the car traffic and melange from other morose on the street, a vulpine musk signaling aggressively inappropriate excitement. You are sure that Mary, the fox from the Running Dogs gang, is up ahead of you in the alley coming up on your right. I'm gonna cross the street. You make the step to cross the street and see the massive form of Tiny lumbering across the street in your direction. You instinctively back up and look off in the direction you'd come from. The wolf, Sergey, is heading in your direction. Great, you think. Moving away from those two puts you back in the mouth of the alley, and Mary. Once there, the reek of vulpine excitement nearly gags you. As Mary the fox captures your attention, someone shoves you into the alley. You stumble a couple of steps in Mary's direction before you steadied yourself. "Hi, Teddy," she says, giggling at you. An ursine shadow eclipses the streetlight behind you, plunging the alley into even more darkness. You turn to look back the way you'd come, unsurprised to see that the bear and the wolf have followed you, blocking your exit. "Hello, Tiny," you say to the huge bear, trying to retain your composure. "Hello, foe," growls a familiar lupine voice. You take a step back from Tiny, and turn toward the voice. That was, "Hello, foe." "Hello, Sergey," you address the wolf next to Tiny. Despite being a large Moreau in his own right, he's completely upstaged by the bear, and you might have missed him standing there if he hadn't said anything. "What's going on here?" you ask. "You're a popular floorball today," he says. You catch an unpleasant whiff of Sergey's last meal as he speaks. Alpha says she wants to talk to you." You're pretty sure Alpha refers to whoever bosses around Sergey, Mary, and Tiny, and the idea that there was someone out there who could boss around that mountain of muscle and fur is unnerving in and of itself. No, this is a bad idea. I'm going to... make a break for it? Let's see what happens. You shake your head. "I don't think so." "Alpha doesn't ask you," Sergey says. "She tells you." Your black-furred finger traces across your injured shoulder and you manage not to wince. "Well, well," Mary's voice purrs in your ear. "Isn't Teddy the ballsy one?" "The name is Foe," you tell her. Her muzzle shoots into your field of vision and she snaps her muzzle shut, biting the air right in front of your face. That's your opening. All three of them in front of you now. You turn and run. You only manage a few steps and Sergey catches up and grapples with you. You turn and swing a punch into his shaggy wolf face. You feel your fist slam home, just as a brown-furred block the size of a trash dumpster collides with your head, knocking the whole alley spinning. You throw another wild punch, but you still end up stunned, flat on your ass in the alley. You may have blacked out a few moments, because once the slice of the sky above you stops rotating, you realize you're suspended between Tiny and Sergey. The wolf has your arms, and the bear has your feet. The difference in stature between the two means all the blood's rushing to your head. You wince and almost cry out as pain shoots through the side of your head. Mary giggles at you, but after pulling her hand away from twisting your right ear, you catch the sharp scent of blood as she dances back from your side, licking her fingers. Before you're ready, they throw you in the empty cargo compartment in back of an old panel truck. You roll across the metal floor and push yourself upright just in time to see the door rolling shut on you. The last thing you see before you are shut in the dark is Mary flipping you off with a blood-stained finger. You shudder a bit because she's still licking it. Once the doors shut you in the dark, you feel the truck start to move. Pretty sure that was the outcome no matter what I tried to do. The truck accelerates and jerks around a corner, throwing you back on the floor. You grunt as the impact reminds you of all your injuries. You lay still until the stabs of pain fade. You push yourself to a seated position and consider what's going to happen when the truck comes to a stop. They're obviously taking you to the Running Dogs' home territory. According to Sergey, you're going to have to talk to Alpha, who seems to be the boss. You spend the drive mentally sorting out everything that's happened to ask the right questions. You hadn't been given much time to sit down and really think about what's going on, at least not since Francesca blew up. You take the time to put the pieces together. It's not a pretty picture, and you think you'd have most of the major elements in place. But you think. All except what the Saints and the Shiny One plan to do with their bombs. About 15 minutes on of erratic stop-and-start driving, the truck pulls to a stop, and powers down the engine. When it's clear that the truck's not about to start accelerating again, you get to your feet. After another minute or two, the rear doors start rolling open. You turn to face the rear of the truck as the door slides home above you. The truck is parked inside a large empty warehouse, the rears facing the depths of the building. Most of the building's wrapped in shadow behind the glare of 3 pairs of headlights angled in your direction. The headlights carve a bright circle of light directly in front of you. A circle of more rows stand at the edge of the lights, defining the otherwise fuzzy boundaries of a 10-meter circle on the cracked oil-stained concrete floor. You quickly scan your audience, all in Running Dogs gang colors. Over a dozen gang members are watching you. Calmly step out of the truck. You walk to the edge of and vault down onto the concrete. You step into the lighted circle and wait. Before you're tempted to do something stupid just to break the tension, the circle of morays parts directly across from you, and a regal canine strides into the circle of headlights. She may be larger than Sergei. While she isn't as shaggy, the lines of her face and body scream wolf. Her fur is midnight black, the only contrast in her coat, a razor-thin streak of white marking a scar that trails from her cheek, under her jaw, and across her throat. Her clothes are the same gang colors as everyone else, and they're tailored to fit her non-human curves. Chains hang from her denim jacket, her belt and boots jingling as she walks toward you. The wolf strides up, black tail swishing behind her as she circles around you. "So your name is Foe," she says, with an Eastern European flavored accent that you decide must be Russian. Most moray wolves you've heard are Russian. "Yes." "Well, Foe, I've heard a lot about you." "What's the Russian accent?" Brock Simpson." "Well, Foe, I've heard a lot about you lately." Is that Russian? I don't know. Is it offensive? Probably. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Haven't heard much about you. "Oh, what have you heard?" You've been showing up in interesting places." She reaches out and places a single black furred finger on your wounded shoulder. "Your proximity to that exploding rabbit is quite enough to generate a mutual interest." "What do you know about that?" you ask her. "Is that Hispanic now? Or Spanish, I mean? Whatever." She chuckles. "The question is, what do you know about it?" You lay it out just as you pieced it together in the truck, how the Saints had taken their trade in the drug spirit and seemed to have built a cult around it, focused on someone named the Shining One. For some reason, they're making suicide vests. At least Francesca was until she had some sort of stoned accident and blew up your apartment. "Your turn," you tell her. "Oh," she says, clicking her tongue. "You don't look like a particularly stupid bear. I spelled things out for you anyway." "I'm Alpha here. Lucy Zakov of the Running Dogs. I am the Running Dogs. You're in my house, surrounded by my people." She steps up so she can whisper in your ear, "Sopho, if you try to dictate the course of this conversation again, I have your throat torn out. Understand?" You see everyone staring at you and feel no choice but to nod. She reaches up and gives the side of your face a condescending pat. "Good! Things go smoother that way. You've made yourself an annoyance, Foe, interfering where you're not wanted. If I wished to, I could have had you killed long before now." "What do you want?" She whips around and glares at me. "My house, bear, remember? Or do you want to be torn apart?" She watches you until she seems satisfied that you'll offer no more interruptions. Finally, she walks up to you and says, "You're alive because you're going to assist me with my damned Saints problem." "What do you want me to do?" So, interesting. Ask what she wants me to do, and play along. It's too risky to refuse right now. I interpret those to be the same thing. Because both of them are playing along, and neither one is agreeing to risk to cooperate right now. Let's play along. "What do you want?" you ask. "Ah," she says, "let's not get ahead of ourselves. There's still your initiation to consider." "What?" "Just show you're worthy of running with us." Lucy gestures at the audience, and 3 familiar figures step into the light. Mary, Sergei, and the brown mountain of fur and menace, Tiny. "What do you mean?" "Pick your opponent," Lucy says, "or I'll pick for you." "Opponent? What? 5? She holds her hand between you, fingers spread, and slowly curls her thumb to her palm. "You want me to 4? She stares at her hand, ignoring you, as she curls her pinky, leaving only 3 fingers extended. You don't appear to be getting out of this without a fight, so you look at the trio facing you. Tiny is the most physically intimidating of the 3, though probably the slowest. He's probably the most painful if he hits you, but besting him would certainly impress this crowd. 3. Sergei isn't as big, but he looks like he can handle a fight. What he might lack in strength, he makes up for with teeth, claws, and a stare that dares anyone to fuck with him. 2. Mary doesn't look like much physically, but you're guessing she's the fastest of the 3, and you figure she's batshit crazy. Not to mention those emerald eyes of hers are boring into you with a look of pure hate. 1. Wait. So, bear versus wolf, in general, bear wins. Bear versus fox, I mean, foxes don't fight in general. I do kind of want to get revenge against Mary, because she's, obviously our history indicates that I want to beat the crap out of her and murder her. But fighting Lucy seems pretty cool. Let's see what happens. I'm super curious. I like you too, Lucy says, but I'm afraid you need to work up to that privilege. She steps away from you and gestures to your audience. A familiar mountain of brown fur, Menace steps into the light. Tiny, show her what I mean. You and Tiny face each other across the impromptu arena. He shrugs out of his denim jacket, tosses it to the side, and begins lumbering towards you. We can use brute force. We can take speed and skill. Play dead sounds pretty funny. Because then I might not... I don't actually want to be initiated into the gang, right? It's kind of not great. Well, let's try some speed and skill. That's my strat. I like that. You brace yourself as the Ursine mountain looms over you. You watch his fist rise, almost in slow motion. At the apex of his swing at you, you duck down, putting all your strength to sweep up with your claws at the soft spot between his legs. Tiny lets loose with a deafening roar of rage and pain. That's like a frog punch. The bad news is that's the only effect your attack has. He doesn't slow his own attack, and his fist hits the side of your head like a runaway truck. Your vision blacks out with a flare of light, and ringing echoes through your ears as you stumble back from him. You stumble back, shaking your head to clear it. Tiny closes on you again, a mocking grin slicing his muzzle, showing his teeth. Can we try the same thing again? We can try speed. Strength just seems bad, right? Strength is just dumb. Deflect his attack and claw. Deflect his attack seems smart. Let's try it again. You wait for him to close on you. Once he takes his swing, you raise an arm to block and bring your other arm up to claw into his gut. He bellows an inarticulate roar, washing you with his unpleasantly rank breath. Then his fist crashes past your blocking form to slam into your face like a runaway truck. You see one flash of light as your vision blacks out. Ringing echoes through your ears as you collapse to the concrete. Your vision clears and you're staring at the blood-splattered concrete. You spit up some bloody phlegm and part of a tooth, and realize that the blood happens to be yours. Tiny's foot kicks your wounded shoulder. You groan in pain as he rolls you on your back. It feels as if the wound from the explosion may have come open again, because under the pain in the t-shirt feels damp against the concrete now. Tiny looms over you, and you're pretty certain the guy could just stomp you into paste now, and there's nothing you can do about it. Somewhere outside your fuzzy field of vision, a Russian-flavored lupine voice barks, "Enough!" I wonder if it was possible to win that fight. I suspect not. The sound of Lucy's voice silences the gang members. You turn your head, your t-shirt tearing slightly against the blood adhering to the concrete. You squint and see her leaning, arms folded against the truck you arrived in. This means I don't have to work for you, right? I'm not worthy of working for you, right? The scent of blood in the fight hides any emotions she might be broadcasting. "Back off, Tiny," she says quietly. "She's mine, remember?" The massive bear shrugs and steps back into the surrounding moros. Once he's gone, the audience itself starts backing out of the light, leaving you alone with the alpha, Lucy. She walks up to you and snaps, "Get up!" You struggle to your feet, groaning. "You are not that hurt," she says. "Do I have to fight you now?" you ask, swaying a little. Lucy laughs at you and shakes her head. "You've proved yourself well enough. What do you—" Shh. Lucy places the pad of her index finger on your lips, one ebony claw pricking the flesh on your nose. "I'm alpha, remember?" You stay quiet and nod. "Just listen quietly, like a good pile of fresh meat. The Saints and their new drug have been pushing into our territory, taking our business. Now you're acting even more erratic. You go to Saints' territory, you join, you become a spy on my behalf, so I know what's going on. Why can't one of your gang—" The claw breaks your skin as she presses her finger forward. "Shh, though. They know my people. You're a fresh face." She removes her finger and assesses you. A new face, at least. You wonder at her logic. If you attracted her attention, why wouldn't the Saints know about you? You rub your nose, suppressing the sneeze. I do not understand the sentence. If you attracted her attention... Oh, I see what you mean. Okay, yeah, I got it. "So," she says, "you will be our eyes within the Saints?" "Yes. Glad we understand each other." After your time with Lucy, she delivers you to a small outbuilding attached to the warehouse. Inside waits a wizened old ferret with old ferret with delicate hands, corrective lenses, and grey shot fur. He motions you to a metal table spotted with a rust-colored stains. As you get closer, you realize the stains aren't rust. "Strip," he says, "and take a seat." He gestures at the table again. "What? You want to be patched up?" The ferret rummages on a work table scattered with tools, rags, and bottles of various shapes and colors. You see a crescent wrench and a bottle of 10W30 motor oil. and ask, "You a medic or a mechanic?" "Yes," the ferret responds as he pulls a bottle of rubbing alcohol and mostly clean rag from the mess. He glares at you again. "Sit!" You remove your blood-spotted clothes and take a seat on the spotted table. For the second time today, someone stitches you back together. He spends most of his time bent over the wound from the explosion that's popped back open. At last, he lets you go with a fresh coat of clothes, a black t-shirt, and a pair of half-shredded jeans. They're nowhere near as nice as the new clothes David had given you, but they are free of any attention-grabbing blood. Sergey and Mary are waiting to lead you back to the panel truck. Once back there, they load you in. Before the door rolls shut, Mary slips her muzzle in to whisper to you, "Please don't do what Alpha wants. I want to play with my teddy some more." Then the door shuts on you, and she's gone. Chapter 9. The Damned Saints.